So I got my Classic II in June of 2019. We are currently in March 2025. So we're coming up on 6 years old. In that time, I have had one heat diffuser, one half of it, crack, and it was replaced under warranty. Other than that, I've never done anything else to that barbecue. Still has its original gasket. It still has all its original parts. Nothing's ever been replaced apart from that one heat diffuser. And whilst I haven't been using it just as much since I got my Classic III, I do still alternate between the two of them. I do still use it quite a bit, but the Classic III is kind of there to share the load. So I figured, coming up when it's 6-year birthday, it's time to freshen up a little bit. So we've kind of got like 3 phases to this. First phase is clean. We're going to do a high heat burn on it. The inside of it's quite grubby and black, so I want to burn a lot of that off with a good high heat burn. Then we're going to move on to replacing. So like I say, the original gasket's there for 6 years. It has never come off. I've never had to stick it back on. So we're going to put a nice fresh new one on it. That gasket is pretty well flattened out. I've never noticed any leaks with it. It definitely seems to seal fine. Whenever I lift the lid, but there's no spring in it anymore. It's completely flattened, so figure it's about time we replaced it. Then the Kontrol Tower is looking a little bit worse for wear. Any KJ owners will know over time the paint can come off them. They're a cast aluminium part, so they're never going to rust or corrode, but they can get a little bit unsightly looking. So again, it doesn't need replaced, still serves its purpose fine, but we're going to replace it and put a nice fresh one on there. Hopefully we're getting our 6 years out of this one. Although I have dropped that one a few times, so it has served its purpose well. So that's cleaning, replacing parts, then we're going to do a slight upgrade. So I'm going to actually add in the charcoal basket attachment that comes with the Classic III as standard. Again, airflow in the Classic II with that little sort of grid at the bottom has never been quite as good as the Classic III, so I'm kind of hoping this will bring it more in line with it. But it really doesn't need anything else other than that. As a grill, it works perfectly fine. So the first thing we're going to do then is a high heat burn just to clean off all the grates, clean off all the metal parts inside it and all the ceramic parts, get them up nice and hot. And then we're going to strip everything out of it and clean it all down. So there's still some charcoal in here from the last burn. You can kind of see with the gasket here what I mean about there's no give left in it. So definitely time to replace it. But this is all quite dirty, grubby. I want to get it all cleaned up first. So we'll leave the charcoal in here that's been in from the last cook. I've kind of scraped all the ash out of it. I want to add a bit of fresh stuff in there, but just to get the temperature up. So nice full charcoal basket. Well, there's no charcoal basket yet. Cook box, just flatten it all out. A couple of fire lighters into it and light that up. So next I'm going to put the cooking grates in the lower level. Only reason for that is really because if we put the heat diffusers down there, it really kind of blocks off the airflow a bit, so I want to keep them up in this higher level just so there's plenty of air circulation around the barbecue. Okay, so then on with our accessory rack. Heat diffusers can sit on here as well, and they'll kind of come up to temperature with the barbecue. So I'll leave the lid up a little bit just to let that charcoal catch, and then we'll come down and close the lid down, open all the vents fully open, and try and get this up as hot as we can. Now I should say one thing, temperature wise today it's quite chilly, but it's not really cold. If you're doing this in the dead of the winter, whenever your barbecue is freezing cold or if it's freezing temperatures, taking that up to high heat can be a little bit nerve-wracking. Even during weather like this, it can be a little bit nerve-wracking. The key thing is to kind of bring it up slowly, so you don't want to race to that highest temperature, then even stick in all your ceramics because you'll just shock them and they'll crack. It's also the time if you've got a little hairline crack and anything, taking it to that really high heat can sometimes then just make it crack. Luckily, they're all covered with a lifetime warranty, so if anything like that does happen, we can get it replaced easily. But start your fire small, put all your ceramics and all your heat diffusers and stuff in there at the start, and then bring them up to temperature with the barbecue, and you should be fine. The other thing is, if you have a shack like mine with a plastic roof, when you're doing these real high heat burns, I would push it out away from the roof. I wouldn't do it underneath it. Not that I've ever had an issue with it, but I don't want to tempt fate. Okay, we've good fire going now, so we're going to close the lid down, let it build up temperature. This, we're going to flip completely open, supercharger mode. Our bottom vent here is already fully open, so we're going to leave max airflow going through there. Make sure you've cleared out all your ash from below, because you don't want it packed full of ash and then there's no air getting in at the bottom. So nice and full. We'll keep an eye on the temperature, see what we can get up to here, but ideally we probably want to get up to at least 300, 350, if not higher. And then we're just going to let that full cook box burn out. Then we can let everything cool down and then come back probably another day, because I imagine this is going to burn for quite a while. And then we'll start stripping everything out and move on to the next stage. Okay, it's a new week. We have finished the high heat burn on the barbecue. Managed to get the temperature right round, filled the dial, kind of went off the end of it, so I would say it was probably close to 950, close to 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. It's the hottest I've ever run one before. The last time I did a high heat burn, I probably got round to maybe like 700 odd, and it wouldn't go much higher than that. But yeah, I was definitely kind of nervous, but I survived it fine. So now we get to cleaning it out. So that has burnt off all the dirt and grime on the inside of it. It's kind of turned it to dust. You can really see it on the inside of the lid, but the cook box as well. So we're going to start breaking it down, get everything out of the inside of it, clean all these surfaces down. That should all just brush off. And we're going to leave the inside of it nice and clean. Then we'll close the lid down, and before we do our gasket, I'm going to give the outside of it a clean. Those of you that have Kamados will know these little dimples can sometimes fill up with dirt and grime, so we're going to get all that taken care of. Don't want to get it too wet, we don't want to soak the ceramics, but we will certainly give it all a quick scrub down, and then we're going to get on with installing the gasket. So rather than going through every individual little clip, we will put a little sequence together of getting the inside of it cleaned out with a wire brush and a stiff brush just to clean down the ceramics. We'll get the outside of it all cleaned down, then we'll join back whenever we're going to do the gasket. Okay, that's everything cleaned up as best as I can get it, and as best as I'm willing to spend the time on. You could take hours and scrub and scrub and scrub to try and get it perfectly clean and back to new, but it's an old barbecue, and I don't mind it looking like an old barbecue. Realistically, the outside's all cosmetic. You don't really need to do any of this. I just did it while I had everything took apart. The inside's the main thing you want to clean out, because that keeps airflow going. So the next dirty job is to get the gasket off. Realistically, at this point, if you're not changing your gasket, you just build everything back in and you're good to go. But I don't want to put all the insides back in whenever we have the gasket to take off, because I might still need to do a bit of scraping and sanding, so it makes it a lot easier to get that dust out. Okay, with any luck, this won't be too hard to come off. Yeah, so the pin is quite easy. That's the main gasket off. We can get rid of that. You can kind of see this black felt gasket here as well. That lips down over the edge underneath your band, so it's really just to protect the ceramics from the metal band rubbing on it. We're not going to replace that, obviously, but what we do need to do is try and clean this up a little bit, because it's quite rough. There's a little bit of excess glue on there. You can kind of see at the back here, the felt's kind of coming away a little bit. So I do have a Stanley knife. You don't want to obviously pull that felt right out, but I'm going to run the Stanley knife along the edge of it here just to take this top lip off, because ideally I want this whole top edge to be nice, clean ceramic for the new gasket to stick to. So we'll take that off, give this a quick rub down with a piece of sandpaper, and come back and let you see what the finish should look like. Okay, we're in the home stretch now. That is the two gaskets removed and sanded down. We've took the majority of that glue off. You don't need to sand it down all the way, but you want to at least sand it down until you can't feel the texture of that glue anymore. So as long as you have a nice smooth surface to put the new gasket onto, you should be fine. I did have one little whoopsie up here. Whenever I took the old gasket off, I kind of noticed there was a little crack chip there. The piece was still in it, but obviously once I put the sander onto it, it just fell out, so it was ready to come off anyway. So I would rather it came off now before I stick the new gasket on, because that's just going to be a weak point in it. But it's no big deal. It's a tiny little chip, so it's not going to make a difference. So last thing we have to do is get everything put back inside it, because once I put these gaskets on and close the lid down, I don't want to be opening them again for a while. I want to leave them pressed together just to let that glue kind of set onto the ceramics. So we'll build everything up, including the new charcoal basket, and then I'll come back and show you how to put the gaskets on. Okay, everyone's put back inside. Now we just have the gasket to do. So the kit from Kamado Joe comes with enough mesh gasket to do top and bottom. So we're just going to cut this exactly in half, and then we can kind of trim it up to size as we stick it on. You also get 2 pieces of the kind of tissue tape stuff. This will go in at the back of the barbecue, so once we obviously have 2 ends, we don't want these frayed ends to go, so we use this to wrap around it and join them together. You will need, this comes with adhesive on it, but you will need something else then, because once you wrap this around, you need to put something underneath it then to stick this to the back of the barbecue. You can kind of get some kind of high heat sealant or high heat adhesive just to stick that down at the back. This is also handy to have around if at any point down the road any of your gaskets come off, you can then re-stick them with something like this. But for now we're just going to go with the 3M adhesive that's on the actual gasket itself. So gravity's kind of working against us with the top one, so I think I'll do it first, just to try and get the awkward one out of the way, and then we'll come back and do the bottom one. So we'll start, we don't want to stick the very end down because obviously we want to get that tape in behind it, but we do need to peel this off. I've cut this in half, by the way, so this is only half of the length. So we'll find roughly where our center point, it doesn't have to be exact, and we'll kind of push on, leave about an inch trailing there just to get that tape on, and then we'll just work our way around, pressing it on, taking the backing off as we go. Try to support the weight of the gasket because it will try to come off just with the weight of it hanging. Okay, once we get back round to here, this is where we need to join these two together and kind of hold them up, get a rough idea of where we need to cut. So we'll take the rest of the tape off, and that will allow these 2 ends to kind of come together. But for now we need to take our other tape, take the backing off it. Just easier said than done. Then I'm going to feed it down in and press the other gasket back up onto it, and just fold the 2 ends back round. So that holds the gasket together nicely, but you'll see now we don't have anything holding the gasket on here, so this is where our adhesive comes in. This stuff kind of ease out, squirt a little bead all the way along that tape. Just a line, doesn't need an awful lot because obviously we have the adhesive at the other sides just to hold it in place. Press that up on. Okay. Obviously once that's pressed against this one here, it will hold that up properly and then it will let it set. It's kind of going to sit down off a little bit at the moment, but we'll fix that once we get this bottom one done. Okay, gasket is all nicely stuck on. We're just going to close it down, let these 2 press together, and then we're going to let it set for at least 24 hours. So once this closes, it's not opening again. Just check around it, make sure you've got a nice seal all the way around. You want to give it a little while with that gasket pressed against each other just to hold everything in place. But it seems to be making nice contact all the way around. It seems to be on quite evenly as well. Now, there is one last thing to do, and that is this. I think this is going to change the look of the whole thing. So we'll crown the project off with our new Kontrol Tower. I think it's time to get a few video clips of the old girl. Okay, that was a mammoth video to make and process took quite a while. You probably aren't going to have to do every bit of it. It's not something you would do every year, obviously. Like I say, I've had this a long time. I've never replaced the gasket on it. I've done 1 or 2 deep cleans in it, but I felt it was time we're going a complete overhaul on it. So you can pick and choose the bits out of the video you need, whether it's changing the gasket, replacing the Kontrol Tower, adding in the charcoal basket, or if you're just wanting to give it a good general clean. I'm going to go and start editing this video. I have no idea how long it's going to take because there's a lot of footage, but I'm super happy the way this turned out. I'm glad I did it. I do still use this quite a bit even though I've got the Classic III, so it's nice to have it back up to par again, have that gasket sealed in. Do me a massive favour, leave a like on this video, let YouTube know that it was useful to you so others can find it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Oh, by the way, links for everything I've used will be in the description as well, including all the upgrades, spare parts, and obviously the sealant that I used as well.